I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, August the 7th, 2014. The 72-hour humanitarian truce between Israel and Hamas continues today, and there are reports that Israel has agreed to extend the truce, while Hamas has reportedly said that it will resume firing rockets at Israel unless its demands regarding Gaza are first accepted. Last night, U.S. President Barack Obama addressed the ceasefire and the U.S. hope that it holds. He said Israel had to be assured that rocket fire would not occur in the future. In his remarks, the president said he had no sympathy for Hamas, but great sympathy for the ordinary people struggling within Gaza. He said the short-term goal has to be to make sure that rocket launches do not resume and that we are now in the process of helping to rebuild Gaza, adding that long-term there has to be a recognition that Gaza cannot sustain itself permanently closed off. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon addressed a special UN session on Gaza yesterday where he harshly criticized Israel for firing at UN facilities even though Hamas was firing rockets from that area. Ban said, "Let me be clear, the suspicion of military action does not justify jeopardizing the lives and safety of many thousands of innocent civilians."
The massive death and destruction in Gaza have shocked and shamed the world.
Israel's ambassador to the UN, Ron Prosor, spoke yesterday at the special session as well, where he harshly criticized the delegates for their, quote, complicity in allowing groups like Hamas to continue to function. Prosor said it might be too much to ask you to stand on our side in this battle between civilization and barbarism, but at least have the decency to swallow your selective outrage while Israel wages war against the extremist groups seeking to eradicate the values that we all hold very dear. Prosor added that the UN was founded to stand for truth, justice, and moral clarity, and that was no longer the case. And U.S. Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN, Rosemary DiCarlo, said that while the U.S. was, quote, horrified by the attacks on UN buildings, stated, "Let us remember how this conflict started. Hamas launched repeated rocket attacks at Israel. Hamas deliberately, willfully targets civilians. No nation can accept such attacks, and Israel has the same right to self-defense as every other nation." And foreign reporters who have recently left Gaza are now sharing images and information about what they said they could not report on while in Gaza, namely showing how Hamas fired rockets from densely populated areas and threats they faced from Hamas. Ynet reports that Italian journalist Gabriele Barbati tweeted about a misfired Hamas rocket that killed children in the Shati refugee camp, saying that Hamas members rushed in and cleared debris at the site and that the IDF spokesperson was being truthful when he said that Israel was not behind the killing there. Another foreign reporter said it was common knowledge that Hamas uses the Al-Shifa hospital as its command center, but that reporters in Gaza were too scared to report about that. A France 24 correspondent and an Indian TV crew shared videos this week showing rockets being launched at Israel close to the hotel where foreign journalists were staying and close to a UN facility. Spokeswoman for the World Jewish Congress, E.J. Kessler, said the international media will have to answer for the intimidation by Hamas of journalists working in Gaza, which she said has produced a one-sided anti-Israel narrative in the press. 5 teenagers were arrested last night in Australia over an alleged anti-Semitic attack, which took place on a bus full of Jewish school children in Sydney. Police report that about 8 teens jumped onto a private bus transporting the 5 to 12-year-olds yesterday and began to yell anti-Semitic slurs and threats like "kill the Jews," also reportedly yelling "Free Palestine" and making physical threats to the children as well. The children were physically unharmed but said to have been traumatized by the incident. The arrested teens were reportedly released into the custody of their parents, and the investigation is ongoing. And a theater in Great Britain has refused to host the UK Jewish Film Festival because it is sponsored by the Israeli Embassy. North London's Tricycle Theatre has hosted the event for the last 8 years, but this year told Executive Director Judy Ironside that because of the situation in Gaza, they would not host the event if funding continues to come from the Israeli government or any other governmental agency, saying that would be inappropriate. Ironside said, "We have always sought to convey a wide perspective on the conflicts in the Middle East and initiate open dialogue with our audiences and guest speakers. And the Israeli embassy, they said, have always supported us in this." She said the tricycle refused to take that into account in their decision. And turning now to our Shalom TV programming for tonight, Thursday, August the 7th. Coming up at 7 o'clock, more coverage of the situation in Israel, a live show with Mark Golub and guests on Israel in turmoil until 9. And at 9, the New York Times' Roger Cohen and Wall Street Journal's Bret Stephens face off about Iran at the American Jewish Committee's annual forum. That's tonight here on Shalom TV and ShalomTV.com. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Thursday, August the 7th, 2014. I'm Teisha Bader.